We are back here with Front Office U Fridays, here with a special guest. Before we get to him, here with my co-host Ryan. Ryan does have his off season officially, so he's actually being able to kind of relax here. But Ryan, how's everything going?
Yeah, things are good, Victor. Very excited for the podcast today. Should be a good one. I know our guest has a ton of experience working in professional sports and even now what he's doing in the marketing and consulting world. So really excited for this episode. Glad to be here with you.
Happy to hear that. And let's get to our guest here. Our guest today is Andre Luck, co-founder of Four Leaf Marketing and Consulting. Yes, that's a long title, but Andre, how's everything going, and what does that kind of entail for you when it comes to working there?
Yep. No, I'm doing great today. I'm excited to be here, excited to be part of the episode. And yeah, Four Leaf has a special meaning. Our last name's Luck. So my wife and I, we co-founded this together. We were coming up with different names. And I was like, what about Four Leaf? Because, Four Leaf Clover, Luck. So kind of, like I said, it can be a little lengthy, but we just roll with Four Leaf. But no, the business is doing great. Happy to dive into that and anything else throughout my career working in sports. So excited to be here today.
Very clever, and I always like the backstory of figuring that out because I think when Ryan and I were thinking about our podcast, like we needed some help outside. So the fact that you and your wife were able to come together and put it all together was pretty incredible. And we'll talk more about that process as well as the story behind it. But before we get to that, we all start thinking of where we want to go to university. You had the opportunity to obviously go to Arizona State University. If you are watching this on YouTube or watching in general, he does got it yep, right there. He's pointing at his incredible background of having an Arizona State football helmet there. But tell us kind of how that decision, came up and ultimately why you made that decision to go there.
Yep. Yeah, I was a military brat growing up, but from like fifth grade up until after high school and college, I grew up in Arizona. So right outside of Phoenix, city called Chandler. Grew up watching Arizona State sports, blood, maroon, and gold still do to this day. And so I knew I wanted to get into business. They had a really good business school. I didn't know what that meant. Like all I knew growing up was my parents were like, you're going to go to college and get a degree and work in business. So I just like work at some like big building. And so I wanted to stay close to home. It was 20 miles down the road, or 20 minutes down the road. It was, perfect fit. Got my business management degree. And yeah, I enjoyed the time there. A lot of people look at Arizona State as a party school. Definitely had fun there, but it was just a school down the street. And I'm blessed at the opportunities that came of it. I couldn't have pictured the opportunities it would have led to, which actually got me into sports, which wasn't the plan going into it. But yeah, it eventually got me into the sports world.
Pretty incredible to hear that. Yeah, it's definitely a party school. I have some friends who went there. They told me some crazy stories, but I'm sure you kept it professional when I came to the
Yeah.
classroom and everything there. But you brought up the cool part of like you weren't thinking about actually working in sports until you were there. So obviously curious on kind of how that maybe
Yep.
transition to that because like you said, you're like thinking, oh, okay, go to college for business, working like a skyscraper or something like that, where it's a 9 to 5 job. Just curious on kind of how your mind kind of changed as we tend to do when we do go to college.
Yeah, yeah. So I graduated high school in 2003. So I was there was in the state from 2003 to 2007. And so sports business was starting to be a thing. Like inside sales teams were starting to pop up. More sports teams were starting to look proactively, but there wasn't like this network. There wasn't podcasts like this. There wasn't LinkedIn like there was back then to know opportunities. So now kids coming out of high school know they want to get into ticket sales or get into sports. So for me, I was just, like I said, going to taking my classes and I would find a job. And my last semester of college, I lucked upon this opportunity. I needed a part-time job. I think they sent an email blast out to all the students on campus, like want to work in sports, and I had a picture of like Sparky the Sun Devil and Sun Devil Stadium in the background. And so I like replied back to it, and so I got invited to this information session. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity I got. A guy by the name of Mike Boswell, he still was working in sports, doing coaching and consulting with a lot of young sellers. He had this program where he and another person were the full-time people, but they would hire students to work around their school schedule. So there were shifts, mornings, afternoons, evenings, everything like that. And we'd work around our school schedule to sell tickets for Arizona State football, basketball, everything like that. Basketball was a little easier to sell that year because we had an All-American by the name of James Harden coming in. So a lot of people were really excited about that. I don't know how well you know some of the guys over at Wolf Cycle, but their founder, their CEO, Ryan Miller, we actually sat right next to each other as students, selling tickets together for Arizona State. So like, there's a lot of good people that came through that program and eventually got on to start their career in sports. But I had no clue like this whole world existed. I just thought it was cool to work for the athletic department, work at ASU. We were in this like little basement room in the basketball arena, was just calling alumni, calling fans that came out to games and looking to sell tickets. I'm like, wow, like this is an actual career. Like you can do this. And like I got told no all the time. And sales is difficult. I was one of the last people in my class to make a sale, but like I loved every minute of it. And so to see that this is something I could do for a career, I was all about it. So that's how I got my introduction. It was my last semester of college. At nights, Monday through Thursday, I would, 2.5 hours call people and sell season tickets, and that led to eventually getting into a full-time role in the sports, which we could talk through. But that was my introduction into the sports business world.
A lot to uncover there. I mean, you go from working with someone who's now, obviously start of the Wolf Cycle, which is now a huge thing. I mean, gosh, we use it here at the Seattle Torrent, and I know a lot of teams now do, and it really comes down to relationships, right? Like building that relationship, trusting that person, and the fact that you sat right next to him the whole time. Now you see you guys are both doing incredible things. It's pretty incredible. I think it's also something to realize, like take some time to know who you are sitting around, because like that could be the next CEO, that could be the next,
Yeah.
if you're sitting by me, probably not the CEO. I'd probably be a little bit lower, but in general, like you said, like
Hey, now,
taking
if you would look back at both Ryan and I, neither of us probably would have been like, "Oh, this is where we're going to be 20 years from now in our career." So,
that is true. Yeah, I think positive and especially in sales where you do get said, a lot of no's in general. And it's good that you took the opportunity to do that, because I can imagine a lot of people are like, I'm not going to do that. Like, why would I do that on Monday through Thursday where I could, Arizona State, right? I could go party
mhm.
or hang out with people, go to sporting events, but you wanted to be there and learn the process. And you said you were the last person to make a sale in your sales class. I was too, so we got that in common. But
Yeah.
curious on your first sale, how was that experience? Because people always talk about like your first sale, and I remember mine was basically $100, so we didn't keep the lights on for that day. But for you, like, what was that experience like? And like, can you kind of walk through of like how that process kind of came up?
Yeah, I remember it vividly. Oh, at least like making the sale. Like once the lady said she's ready to move forward, I like blacked out. Like I had no clue to do. So we were very structured on like our script that we had to follow. And it was good for us because we're students. So like he didn't want us going off the rails saying whatever. Who knows what we'd say. And so, you get through each step of the process and like you ask your questions and like you're, getting to know the memories, all the stuff we ask like in typical ticket sales. And then at the very end, you ask this question of, all right, are you ready to move forward and join the Sun Devil football family or something like that? And I had said this for like 2 months straight, over and over, hundreds of times. People were like, no, I'm good, or whatever objection you're trying to overcome. She's like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And I was like, I don't know what to do now. Like, I'm like, do I go in the ticketing system now? I'm like trying to call my boss over. I'm like, put her on hold real quick. But that thrill, that excitement, like that was a lot of fun. And like that was like that. All right, I finally got over that hump. And so you talked about how, you were one of the last in your class. I'm sure that's a story you can tell to people up and coming. But that was something that stuck with me throughout my career as I moved into leadership and management of like stick to the process. Like if you're consistently doing what you need to do, eventually things are going to come. Sales, sales is crazy. You could say everything's exactly how you need to say, and it's just not the right fit, not the right time. You don't close the sale. You could stumble through a call, mess up, and it just be the right fit with the right person, right time. You close the deal, and it's like it could mess with you a little bit. But that was that first step for me of like, all right, I can do this. And then I started to go on a little run after that and like see some success and like that carried me into like this is what I want to do at least to start my career. I don't know where it'll take me, but I want to take this to the next step and do this full time for hopefully a professional sports team.
It's great to bring that up too, right? Like now being a leader, you have to have those conversations. Like, look, I used to be in your shoe. Like I wasn't the best seller. It took me 2 months, right? Like
Hmm.
some players, professional athletes, like they go 2 months without scoring or something. They're probably not on the team, in general. So the fact that you're able to kind of share that, like, look, it's a whole process. Yes, you were just going through kind of the motions that, before you make that sale, and then you're like, all right, something clicked, let's do this. Let's really go all in and really understand the process itself. And yeah, I
And
mean,
then
we hear that.
I would add too, like it gave me a different level of like empathy for people as they were struggling because when we made a sale, you got to go write your number on the board, you got to ring the bell, high five the boss. I just had to watch this for like months, like right next to me. And so it brings up like, competitiveness, like your ego, like add your negative attitude, positive, like you really have to like be locked in and like not get caught up and like run your own race. And so, for me, leading people, it showed like here's what you have with people when they go through struggles. And for me, I usually can be like, this isn't working. I'm not making any money. I'm not having fun. But like, there was something that told me like, stick with this, and it like really shapes your character being in sales and like hearing no and like struggling. Like, eventually, as you get on the other side, like when you hit another slump, you're like I've been here before, and like, all right, I know what I need to do to get out of it, and like learn that like very first real job in my career. Like that was a good experience for me.
Yeah, I think the thing too to look at that whole process is like understanding the fact that like look, I after at least for me the first 3 months I was struggling. It took me 3 months to make a sale, so you're a little bit better than I was. But also like think of it as like a lot of people quit after they if they're not good at something they quit. Like I remember the first time I got an interview, thought I was gonna get the position, didn't get the position. I was like, all right, well obviously it's not me, it's them, right? And so the fact that you bring up the positivity and understand like, hey, like you can think as negative as you want, but no one's really going to help you. You're going to be the one that has to set yourself apart. So that kind of leads into the question here, like what was something that set you apart versus, someone else when it came to, getting positions later in your career?
Yeah, I was always focused on just being consistent. And I never got too caught up in sport. I think we've done a better job of this, but like early in my career, like there was very much like here's your path. And if you're not, an AE after a year or a senior AE at, a year and a half and an inside sales manager at 3 years, you're falling behind. And like I had to get off LinkedIn for like a good year, 2 years early in my career because I'd be like, that person's a manager. Like, how did that happen? Like, I'm better than that. But like, and like all these like negative emotions early in your career, like creeping into and like taking you off focus of like where you need to be. So I think like just being centered, I had really great leaders who focused on like me as a person, individual, making sure I was developing, growing personally and professionally. Um, and so for me, I just focused on being consistent. I never rode the roller coaster. I never like chased like, the new shiny title or going to this team. It's like, am I with people that are helping and investing in me? Am I learning and growing? Am I showing up every day and just being consistent? I share this with a lot of people. Like sales is difficult, but it's also not as hard as we make it. If you just show up every day and do what you need to do, like over the course of 52 weeks and doing what you need to, like you're going to have success. I knew on most Mondays, people were either hungover or they, or stumbling coming into the weekend, talk about their weekend. So like as long as I just showed up on Monday and then Friday as everyone's kind of winding down, like I just had to keep up with you Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because I knew I was going to beat you Monday and Friday if I just showed up and did what I needed to do. And so I think that paid off over time. I never got too high. I never had those low lows. I was always consistent. And so we take these personality assessments and like, what type of leader are you? What type of professional are you? And like, it was always like some blend of like consistent, steady Eddie, like nothing like sexy or exciting. And so like, I would get very insecure about that because like all my other peers would be like, gregarious, dynamic, motivates, and inspires people. I'm like, I want to be that. But like, once I like accepted, like, this is my role and this is what I do and do well and own that, like, that's where I grew. And so I think it was a little bit of a differentiator for me as like a seller and a leader that I had a different style and approach, but I also just showed up and did what I needed to do. And then you look up over 2 years, over 5 years, over 10 years, like that all compounds. And like I never like had any setbacks because I was just always progressing and moving forward. So I'd say that and just like being blessed to have good leaders early in my career that like kept my head on straight and focused on the right things and like let me grow and develop at my own pace. Like I was immature. Like I was, a little cocky at times and they let me kind of grow and find myself and stumble when I needed to, but pick me up and love me when I needed. So I'd like to take credit for it. And I think there are some like traits and skills that definitely helped me, one being consistency. But as I look back, 15, 20 years ago, a lot of it was like the leaders and like just being blessed in the right situation with good people that created this environment that we all raised our game. Like we all, I started, we didn't get to it yet, but I got started my career at the Arizona Diamondbacks. And as I look back on like that group that we started with, there's managers who are SVPs now. There are SVPs who are C levels. And there were reps who all went on to be like, there's like 15, 20 of us that went on to be like, VPs and higher throughout our career that were just this group of people just all together, just trying to sell some Diamondbacks tickets in the mid to late 2000s. So I think that environment really cultivated and set the stage for where I was going to go off in my career.
Well, consistency is something Ryan loves. He brings that up in podcasting in general. And honestly, every day this reminds me. And it's something that I think we always tend to think it's easier than it is. And the fact that you're able to do that, look back at that as well as just the leaders. Because in sports, like as much as you want to say that you can go to a team and succeed, if you don't have the right leaders and the people who are going to push you as well as just like be there if you do have a tough day, like you're probably not going to see as much growth. And I think that's huge in everyone's career. Like I've heard always good things about the Diamondbacks in general, just because of the fact that they're able to invest. And I have a coworker who's been working there for, I think now 5 years. He loves it. So it shows you
Mhm.
that they continue to excel and have great, obviously, leaders there as well. And the fact that don't compare yourself to someone else. I did that every day, and that's probably why I didn't grow as much as I wanted to. And then the ego part, my it took me like 4 years to figure that one out. So a little bit late bloomer on that end, but I can totally relate with that because on the sales side, you want to make sales 24/7 and you want to be better than everyone. But if you're comparing someone to yourself, like that's just impossible because you have different potential than they do. So the fact that you said a lot of these people went to VPs and higher ups on that end, like just shows you that like, look, everyone's path's different. It doesn't necessarily mean your path's gonna be exactly the same, right? So the last thing I kind of wanted to say here before I pass it to Ryan here is like, what sports did you play when you were younger? Because that's always something that I'm always fascinated because I think a couple episodes ago I learned what squash was. Couldn't tell you exactly all the rules, but like the sports that people play in general, I think is pretty incredible to see. Obviously, why they're in the sports industry.
Yeah. I mean, sports was my life. Like my dad, he was a big basketball guy, but he had, me and my brother, my sister playing all kinds of sports. But like for me, my main sport growing up early was basketball because like, that was MJ in the 90s and like we'd watch the NBA on NBC and like I love basketball. And then as I got into middle school, everyone kind of grew and I didn't as much. And I was like, all right, like maybe basketball isn't my thing, but I love playing baseball too. So baseball from middle school on was my sport, and so you see my Griffies there. I have a dog. I named him Griffey. Like baseball was my thing, and so all through high school, even like in college, I played in like men's baseball leagues. Like still playing, like trying to hold on and like keep playing baseball. In college and post college, we actually had a team of us when I was at the Diamondbacks. A couple guys that used to play. Like we started our own like men's baseball league team. So baseball is my sport. And I was blessed that, aside from a brief stint working at Arizona State, like 17 years of my career, I worked in Major League Baseball. So Diamondbacks, Astros, Marlins, like, my wife was always like, can't you get to another sport? I was like, yeah, but I love baseball. And so to get to do that for my whole time working in ticket sales was really cool and special. Because I'd be watching it anyways. Like if I wasn't like we worked, 40, 80 games, whatever it may be, if I was at home, I'd just be watching MLB Network anyways. I might as well be there working, getting paid to do it because I'd be watching the game anyway. So
Yeah, baseball is always one of those sports that I always find so like relaxing in a way. I can't necessarily, watch a whole baseball game because I fall asleep pretty easily for anything. Ryan knows this, pretty obvious, and it's kind of embarrassing. But it's nice to hear that like the baseball side, like basketball, and until people started growing, you're like, all right, let's switch to baseball. It doesn't matter what the size you are, you can still play, and then playing obviously with your coworkers too just shows you how close knit the community is on the sports side. So I'll pass it here to Ryan to share more on your sports experience.
Yeah,
Yep.
appreciate that, Victor. And yeah, it's been a ton of fun to kind of listen to some of your experiences already, Andre. And you kind of touched on, starting off in baseball. You mentioned playing it, but starting off with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And when you first kind of started there, like what was that adjustment period like going from, working at Arizona State, being in a college athletics department to moving up now to the MLB where you're working a ton of games and, in the summers and a little bit different environment. What was that kind of initial reaction like for you before you were able to kind of fully settle into that world in the MLB?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities because it's still ticket sales, but definitely a lot I needed to learn and grow. And so I probably went into it a little overly confident. I'm like, oh, I've sold tickets before, but like it's a different sale, like different clientele, different product that you're selling. There's some similarities, yes, but there's a bigger expectation now. Like you're going moving from selling 6 to 7 home football games to now 81 home baseball games. And talking to businesses versus alumni and like all those different things. So I did well. It was a seamless adjustment because a lot of like the best practices were the same, but I definitely had some maturing to do. And like now you're on a staff with like people who've been selling like for 5, 10 plus years in your career. So to me, I saw that, I leaned on a lot of the leaders there to learn from them and like saw that as an opportunity to like, right, really step my game up and like, all right, I don't want to be last on the sales board. So what do I need to do to keep up and how do I need to adjust and everything like that? So it was a ton of fun, but definitely a couple years to like really learn, right, this is the difference selling college versus selling Major League Baseball and how you need to adjust your sales approach a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's a big part of it too. You talked about, getting to know and to network with the other people you work with. And I think so often, that can be something that we forget to do at times, getting to know the people that we work with, because they may be able to move on in their careers and help us out at different points as well. And kind of along, the same kind of lens there, you talked a little bit earlier kind of about your mindset in terms of your kind of work ethic and being consistent and, working hard on those days where maybe some other people are kind of lounging into work or looking to get out early. But in terms of your networking, Andre, like what would you say has kind of been your mindset in terms of how you've been able to grow in that area? Because I think we all know how important, that aspect is in sports. You touched on earlier, kind of going through that in a time when, there wasn't LinkedIn and there wasn't as many of these opportunities that we may have now. What would you say has kind of been your overall mindset in terms of how you've approached your networking in your career?
Yeah, I wish I had done more of it earlier in my career. As an introvert and someone who kind of keeps themselves in like very close knit of like, right, I got my crew, I'm good. I was fortunate that, a lot of the leaders and mentors I had, they had worked at other places. So they brought me into other circles. They're like, hey, meet this person at this team, meet that person at that team, where I should have probably been the one proactively like seeking those out. But, I was fortunate that I got to build my network pretty quickly. Or, I would just be in it, like people would come visit the office and they'd be like, hey, meet this person. He's at the Suns or they're from the Hornets. And like I would slowly start to build this network. And so I say I wish I had done it sooner because now and where I'm at in my career, like I wouldn't have been able to start my business if I wasn't as proactive as I was on LinkedIn and meeting new people and connecting. Once I got into leadership, I would set up calls on like a monthly basis with just another manager at another team. And like, hey, what are you all going through? What are you all working on? And like slowly you start to build your network. Like, who else should I talk to? And they tell me to go to talk to this person at that team. And so that started to become commonplace. And the leagues do a great job too of like having monthly calls and like setting up these like environments and like platforms for you to network and meet other people. But I would say anyone starting on their career, start now. LinkedIn now is like the robust of people you could tap into. Send them a quick message. Hey, do you have 15 minutes? I'd love to pick your brain. I take those calls, 99% of the time, unless I just missed the call or missed the message. Because I know how humbling it is and like how much courage it takes to reach out to somebody. But two, you never know what you're going to learn from somebody and how you could pour back into someone.
Yeah, we love hearing that. I mean, it's a big reason that Victor and I wanted to start up this podcast is to find people like you that want to give back and help out. Because I know there have been so many that have helped me in my career, that have helped Victor in his career, that, yeah, they just took 15, 20 minutes to have a conversation with someone who reached out. And, obviously not all are going to be great. Not everyone you're going to keep in touch with, but you may be able to find someone that can be a mentor or can connect you with the right people to, progress your career too. So I think that's awesome for you to be able to touch on that aspect of things as well. And one other aspect of things I wanted to kind of hit on, you mentioned a little bit earlier, is, seeing other people have success and kind of, wondering like, man, like what am I missing here? Or going through different slumps or pieces of adversity in your career. And you said that you wanted to kind of stick with it. But, I know that we all kind of hit that at different points of our career. Like, what are some things that you've learned that you kind of give off to other people when they reach out to you going through similar things where they're kind of at a, career block and they're trying to kind of push through that?
Yep. Um, a couple things. I mean, one, you really got to assess like, is this what I want to do? A lot of people like the idea of doing something, but like, you really want to do the work that it's going to take, and it's not easy. Entrepreneurship, sales, leadership, like none of it is easy. So if you're at the point where like, I don't know if I want to do this or not, you really got to have that conversation yourself. Is like, is this something that I really want to go through? The other part, which is super difficult, is doing like your own introspection and like getting constructive feedback and receiving it and maybe not reacting emotionally in the moment because sometimes you hear something and you're like, man, like you just kind of dismiss it because like you didn't want to hear it, you weren't in the space. Let it sit for a day or two, and then like once the emotions kind of calm down, like is there truth to this? Like is there, or whether you think there is or not, like someone's giving you constructive feedback, like seek that deeper and see how you could look to improve and look how you can, try and get better and everything like that. So I think those are things for me of just like, you know, humbling myself, looking for ways to continue to grow, looking for ways that can you get better. And when you're at that point and you kind of hit that wall, one, don't give up because you could just be right on the other side of like, having a breakthrough. But find people that you trust, ask for honest feedback. Um, don't lead the witness. Don't go to your buddy that's going to tell you like, oh yeah, they're stupid or like, yeah, that stink. Like, no, who's the person that's going to be honest with you, even though you don't want to hear it because they care about you and they love you? And, take that and put it in action. All right, now put a game plan together of like, all right, here's what I need to do to move forward. Put measurements in place so you could track it. And, that's going to help you because now you're working towards something. You're not just like aimlessly like going through the day. You're like, right, I'm going to set this goal over the next 90 days, the next 60 days. And like, here's how I'm going to track and measure it every week. Here's how I'm going to hold myself accountable. Here's who I'm going to bring into this that's going to help me and push me through that too. Those are things I look at. Those are things from like just being a leader or like, being led by other people. But when you take that accountability yourself and find other people, like you're going to find a way to at least progress forward. Or let's say you went through this for 90 plus days, whatever it is, and like you still feel that same way, or maybe you didn't get the breakthrough you want to, it might just not be for you. At least you've given like all your effort towards it and put a plan in place to get on track versus just like throwing your hands up like, yeah, this isn't for me, I quit. You attempted and like that's okay. Like you can pivot. You can go do something else. Like we're all young. Like there's still so much life that we can go live. So
Yeah, love hearing that answer from you on that, Andre. Definitely agree that, I've certainly been in those moments where you kind of receive some of that feedback and, maybe at first your reaction is like, no way, like this does not apply to me. And then, it's crazy how, you just let that sit for a day or two or even a couple days. And, you can kind of reflect back and say, oh yeah, there is some truth to this. And, I think that's all kind of having that growth mindset and being open to learning new things and receiving constructive feedback. Because even like you said, it's easy to surround yourself with people that are like, oh yeah, you're doing everything right. This sounds great, but finding those people that, want to push you to be better and want to see you continue to grow, I think is so impactful as well. And kind of on that same note, you mentioned your experience with the Diamondbacks, but you also worked in the MLB with the Houston Astros and with the Miami Marlins as well. So would kind of be
yeah.
interested to, as you kind of reflect back on, your, variety of experiences within different organizations, like what are some of those kind of little things that you've taken from other leaders within those organizations or the culture within those, offices that you were within that you think kind of help you out now in your role, in marketing and consulting, as you kind of reflect back upon, your variety of experiences working in the MLB?
Yeah, so I worked with the Diamondbacks, the Astros, Marlins, all different cultures, but all great leaders there. And I think one of the first things I look back on is just like how you treat people. and looking at them less like a number. Because like in what I'm doing now of like consulting and trying to, work with different teams and like finding clients, like it could be very transactional if I wanted it to be. But what I've learned is a lot of the relationships I've built, a lot of the people I either worked with in the past, those have become clients of mine because of how I treated them when they were a rep for me, or when they were a coworker of mine, or they were referred for me, or I was referred to them through someone, and just like that character and like that integrity you keep and things like that. So I'm so fortunate that, yes, we talked about ticket sales and sales execution and like how do you become a better leader and all that type of stuff. But a lot of what, we really focused on was like that personal growth and development. We would do Monday morning book clubs. We would, read leadership books and like be honest and open with each other about like our strengths and weaknesses and get vulnerable. And like those are things that have helped me just be a better human to people and not get so caught up in like, all right, how do I close the next deal? I'm honest with people. I'm like, I would love to, do a training and take your money, but like, I want to look up 12, 18 months from now and say, did I really make an impact? Like, did we make like a transformational change across your ticket sales team in your department? And like, that is like what's most core to me, not get as many deals closed as possible, many clients as possible. It's like, where can I make the most impact and provide the most value? And I think a lot of that, as I look back throughout my career, um, kept me from looking so short term on like transactions, just closing deals, but like how do we form relationships? How do we develop and cultivate a staff and a culture and all those type of things that has now played into me being able to turn this into, a business that, my wife and I can like build and, take with us.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And, you've been able to kind of, turn that and use it to your advantage to say, hey, I have all this experience. I've learned from many different leaders at, the highest level. And you kind of take little bits and pieces from wherever you go into what you get to do now, which I think is so great. And you kind of touched on at the start, kind of, what you do now with Four Leaf and, all the, work that you do there. But as you've kind of gone into that role now for about 2 years, a little over 2 years, like what would you say have you found has kind of been the biggest challenge or maybe the hardest part about your role now, working as a co-founder of, kind of your own company? What have you kind of found in your experiences so far that you would say has been the hardest part of your job now?
Yeah, I'd say the the biggest thing now is like when you work at a company, obviously you have to perform, but like you're guaranteed a paycheck like every 2 weeks or every month or whatever it may be. And like there's some day like you could take some days off and like as long as you're still doing all right, you're good. And you're an entrepreneur, like there's no days off. Like if you don't go out and try and hunt and find new business, like you're not going to make money as a business owner. So that's the thing that, even when like things are good, you have clients, you're doing work, like you have to block that time. And that goes back to like me being a seller. Like if you didn't always fill your pipeline and, create new business, you're not going to have future deals closed. So I'm glad I feel for entrepreneurs that didn't actually do sales because I don't know they fully understand the grasp of that. Like you always have to be going out and cultivating new business. And so even when I first started, like my calendar was just as full as like when I was working full time for a team, just meeting people, talking to people, even before I knew what this was fully going to look like just having conversations with people and like meetings all throughout the day. And so that's the thing where I've noticed over the past couple of years where when things start to slow down, if I look back probably like the past couple weeks, month, probably let my foot off the gas on like continuing to like go out and try and find new business and reach out to new potential clients and things like that. So you have to have that balance. Like make sure that you have enough bandwidth and time to actually deliver the work and execute on what you're doing for people, but then also blocking aside an hour a day, a couple hours a day to like go out and maybe not always like doing outreach, but at least prospecting and understanding what's going on in the ecosystem, like what are different teams or potential clients you can go after. um, so now it's real to me when I say this to reps and train. I'm like, this isn't just lip service because your boss wants me to tell you this. Like, I'm telling you this as someone who's like out, like proactively seeking business. Like, you need to be out there hunting every single day, going and like prospecting and reaching out to new leads. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because you touched on kind of your mindset of being consistent earlier. And I think there's no better example than kind of what you're doing now because even like you said, things could be going good, really productive week. Well, it's like, okay, well, we still got next week coming up. We got to start planning, preparing, setting up our schedule, setting up calls, and always looking ahead to new outreach so that you're in a great spot even a month from now and so forth. So that's awesome and great context for our listeners to hear on that. And I know we're kind of nearing the ending part of our podcast, but before we wrap things up, before we get into Flash Friday, I do want to ask about some impactful mentors that have kind of impacted your career. You touched on a lot of variety of experiences you had, already on this podcast. But as you reflect back to some of those people that really lent a helping hand to you, who are some people that come to mind that really made a positive impact and set your career off to be in the spot where it's in today?
Yep. As I look back, my first inside sales, I talked to my very first boss, Mike Boswell. I think just getting my start in sports, like forever grateful for any chance I get a chance to shout him out and talk to him and thank him. Like I'm blessed. Like easily could have passed on, and that my career never got started in sports, which wouldn't have led to all the other things that have happened in my life. So that's one. My inside sales manager, Jason Howard. So he was my inside sales manager and director at the Diamondbacks, brought me to Houston when he was VP of ticket sales to be the inside sales manager and eventually director of ticket sales there. Um, and then underneath him was a senior director, a guy named PJ Keene. He's the VP of ticket sales now for the Houston Astros. Those two probably had the biggest impact in my career up until I had moved on to work for the Marlins. And so yes, as a professional and as a salesperson, as a leader, but even more so as a human, as a father, as a Christian, like finding my faith, like those two were probably like the biggest impact that I had throughout my career. Um, I'll touch on it because, take the fandom out of it and like the superstardom, but like going to the Marlins when I got there, the CEO was Derek Jeter, first black CEO in baseball, and the leadership team and like the integrity of which he looked to hire people and like he lived by every day. Like, although I didn't spend every day with them, I'd be in meetings with them and like have conversations and like all the stuff you saw like him as a player was the same as him as a leader. And that rubbed off on me of like just remembering like your integrity and your character is all you've got and like how you show up every single day and the way you position yourself as a leader like is important and people are always watching. So I mean, I'm definitely leaving out tons of people who've made a huge impact in my career, but as I quickly look over the 20 plus years, those are a few that like really stood out to me at like key moments in my career where it definitely made an impact on me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's awesome to hear about that. Yeah, obviously Derek Jeter seems like that'd be a pretty good person to shout out here. So we love hearing that, and all your experiences that you've shared. Awesome to kind of dig into kind of your mindset, your philosophy, how you approach your leadership. And I think what's interesting too is even that you said, you're kind of naturally like an introverted person, which I think to a lot of people would say, oh, how's that work in sales? But you've been able to build a successful career and just be authentic and true to who you are, which I think is so awesome. So appreciate all
Yeah,
that. With that being said, I'm going to pass it back off to Victor here. I know he's going to get us going with our Flash Friday segment to get to know Andre a little bit better here next.
Yeah, this is where it's a little bit more exciting because you don't know the questions that are going to be asked, and I feel
I have
like
no
that's
clue. So,
exactly so just like sales, right? Like they don't know what you're going to be saying to them over the phone, and so first question for me is obviously big. You're a big sports person in general. What's one sporting event that you haven't been to that you want to go with your family, and why?
oh man. Wow, that's a tough one. I've been in the World Series, which is great. Um, I don't know, like the World Cup's taken off right now. I don't know. I'd want to go to the World Cup. Um, Probably like a man, this is tough. Probably like the Olympics. I think that'd be really cool. Like going to Olympic sporting event. I don't know which event, but like just that whole atmosphere around the Olympics is really cool.
That's a good one, I would say. I think Olympics in general, just being able to go there and kind of see how crazy athletes can be at a high level, doesn't matter what sport. Would it be like the Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics? I got asked the follow-up
Summer
on that.
Olympics. Yeah, like Summer Olympics, basketball. I mean, I grew up watching the Dream Team and like all those like US basketball teams, so I think that one would be really cool. And then my girls are starting to get into sports now too. So, I got three daughters. Obviously I want them to play baseball as long as they can, but at some point they'll probably play softball. So maybe getting to watch like, the college softball World Series or going to Olympic and watching softball or something like that and getting to see like there's a path, for women's sports. So that'd be really cool.
Yeah, women's sports, I agree, is growing. I know they have the softball league now that's going to be starting. So maybe, gosh,
Hmm.
5, 10 years from now, we'll be seeing your daughters in that and be like, wow, we
Like 10, 15, but
10
yeah.
15. Okay, so we'll move it 10 to 15 years down the line. But either way, that would be pretty cool and surreal to look back at that. And my second question here before I pass it to Ryan, and Ryan always knows this question, but with NIL being huge nowadays, take you back to say you're in baseball, you got an NIL deal, you can be with any company. What company would it be and why?
And I'm very loyal to Nike. So I mean that's the first thing that comes to mind of like that'd be pretty cool. Because I like even now, like Arizona State, all their stuff's Adidas. I'm like, like I really want Nike gear. But that's one Chick-fil-A. Like I love Chick-fil-A. Like I eat it way too much. So I think that one would be a pretty cool one too if they did NIL deals.
There we go. You got two great one for food and another one for all your apparel. So you'll be all
Yep.
set to go there. And out in the outfield, maybe having some Chick-fil-A, some sauce and fries, and maybe a shake. So seems like a
Yep.
pretty sick deal. And great answers too. Nike obviously is a leading leading team obviously for sure. So I'll pass it here to Ryan to ask his.
Yeah, love that answer from you on that, Andre, as well. My first question for you, I'll give you an option. Give me your all-time either favorite movie or TV show. So you can pick either option, but your all-time favorite for a movie or a TV show.
Um, Man, I got a lot of movies. I think my favorite movie is The Sandlot, which is cool that my girls like they love that now too. So I'll go back to that, and then TV show, some mix of like Saved by the Bell or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Love that. That's awesome. The classics, absolute
Yep.
classics right there, for sure. So can't go wrong. Love those answers. And then my last one, before we wrap up, I know Victor asked about a sporting event, but let's say you get a vacation with your family, all expenses paid. This one's off the hook for you, Andre. But where would be somewhere that you would want to go on a vacation? Maybe somewhere that you have not yet been with your family or by yourself. Where is a vacation destination that you would like to visit that maybe you have not been to just yet?
Yeah, my wife and I talk about all the time. Like, surprisingly, we haven't been to Europe yet. And so we had a trip planned, a cruise planned in 2020. Like, we were going to go down, like different parts of Europe, Italy, France, Spain, all that. And obviously, COVID happened. So we never did. We had another kid, life got busy. So, that's still on our to-do list is to go to France, or not France, go to Europe and take the kids to Europe and, kind of do that whole scene. So, hopefully next year we could do it. But yeah, that's the next trip on the list for the whole family.
Love that. Just it's crazy how easy it is to get around in Europe. Like you just take a train or it's cheap flights or
Yeah.
everything. It's even now, like you mentioned, the World Cup being on, like all the Europeans coming over and seeing some of their travel stories. Like they can't believe how far they have to drive to some of these places. It's funny to me. But yeah, definitely gonna test. Europe would be a lot of fun for a vacation. So hope you and the family can get out there next year and make amends for what we didn't get
Yeah.
back in 2020. So been a ton of fun. Really enjoyed the conversation today, Andre. And for our listeners that have kind of made it all the way through to this point in the podcast, you mentioned this, you touched on it earlier on the podcast, but what would be the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you if they have any follow-up questions of their own, want to learn more about what it's like in the, sports industry? What would be the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's going to be the best way to do that. So connect with me, send me a message, remind me that, hey, you heard me on the podcast, but anybody looking to get in, like I'm always happy to take that call, 15, 20 minutes and just share like, hey, here's what I learned. Here's what I'm seeing. Because I get to talk to a lot of teams, leaders, reps, and like here's what's maybe changed or the misconceptions that a lot of people think out there. And so I'm happy to help and give back wherever I can. And kudos to you all for having this platform for people like me and also for what you guys are doing every day. Like you guys have day jobs. Like, so investing time and I know what it's like to create content and do this on a consistent basis and show up every week. Like that's a lot. So kudos to you all too for this platform.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And we will definitely include the link to Andre's LinkedIn here in the description of this podcast. We definitely encourage all of our listeners to be following up. Obviously, Andre loves to help out, and it's a big reason why Victor and I enjoy this as a hobby of ours, to connect people with those that are crushing it in the sports industry. And obviously, Andre has a ton of good information that you've already heard on this podcast. And we definitely encourage you all to grow your networks and connect with him on your own as well. So we appreciate Andre so much for all of his insight and being a guest on today's episode of the podcast. Thanks again to Victor for co-hosting this one with me. And we'll be back again next Friday with a new Front Office View Friday episode. Take care, everybody.